Monica, are we ready to go?
We are, Commissioner.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So excuse me, it's Monday. Administration and Human Services is going to get started. Before I call our meeting to order, I want to announce that some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely by Zoom, as well as some on site, and all participants joining by phone, please mute your phones when you're not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, make sure you announce yourself by name and title when you speak so the public that's observing knows who's speaking, and be sure and speak directly into a microphone so that all of your comments are heard and the record of the meeting is accurate. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from our Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments are included in the record of our meeting. The public can also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by noon on the day of the meeting. And also the public has the opportunity to provide brief comments by phone or Zoom from our fifth floor conference room. It is allowed during each agenda item, and comments should be limited to the item at hand and per our commission rules of procedure. Should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments and statements as to motives and personalities. And I'd like to call our meeting of Administration and Human Services Standing Committee meeting for Monday, April 21, 2025 to order. And just for the public's information, our committee is usually heard directly after Public Works and Safety Standing Committee. However, tonight we're changing places. We have one item. And with that, if I could get the clerk to call the roll, please.
Roll call. Hill. Davis.
Here.
Ramirez. Kane.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
And thank you to Commissioner Bill Burns for stepping in at the last minute so that we can have a quorum for our meeting. Clerk, are there any revisions to the agenda tonight?
There are no revisions.
And we have no minutes to approve, so we'll move right to our one committee item. And that is a resolution for the Kansas State Historic Preservation Office Historic Preservation Fund Grant. And I will recognize Alyssa Marcy and Randy Greaves from our Urban Planning and Design Department for a presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, my name is Alyssa Marcy. I'm the long range planner with Planning and Urban Design, and I'm actually going to hand this over to Randy Greaves, our historic preservationist.
My name is Randy Greaves. I'm the historic preservationist for the Department of Planning and Urban Design. We are here today for the Historic Preservation Fund. This is a yearly grant offered by the Kansas State Historic Preservation Office to further the preservation initiative across the state of Kansas. This year, we are seeking a grant to create historic design guidelines for our downtown historic district. This is the next step in the culmination of a series of projects we've done downtown, the creation of the Downtown Kansas City, Kansas Historic District, the creation of the Main Street program in downtown, and then the citywide historic preservation plan. The goal for all these different initiatives downtown is to open up the maximum amount of resources available from historic preservation to our downtown to help revitalize it. This match, we're asking for $50,000. We have no match. As a certified local government, our match is either in kind through my working hours or can be waived because we have that special assignment from the state, which we get because of our excellent preservation practices in this community. So the goal of the design guidelines is to make it easier for building owners to repair their historic buildings downtown by laying out very clearly what would be expected. Whenever I do my reviews, it is based off the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment and use of historic buildings, and that is a massive document, and a lot of the questions you might ask of it respond with, it depends. So by hiring a consultant to make these design guidelines, we answer that question in advance And if people submit a project that meets all those standards, I'm able to write letters of exemption that speed up the process of rehabilitating these buildings, which are often underutilized or vacant. So by combining that with the historic tax credits, which are recently increased from 25 to 40% by the Kansas government, we hope that this can help be a catalyst in our downtown economy. It is a bit of a tight turnaround. The grant was released on March 28th, which is why I'm asking for this to be expedited to Thursday's Board of Commissioners meeting. So that should be that.
Okay, thank you very much. Any committee members have questions? Committee members online or here in person?
Second.
Thank you very much. And before we do that, we'll hold those. Clerk, were there any comments from the public received?
No comments were received.
And is there anyone here in person that would like to speak to the item? I see no one coming forward. We do have a motion and a second on the item, so I'll call roll. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, would that also include the fast track request?
Yes, with the fast track. Thank you very much. Okay, roll call.
Roll call. Burns.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Kane. Bynum.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. That's our only item. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, on the adjournment.
Roll call. Burns.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Kane. Bynum.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, Alyssa.
Good night, everyone.
Rodney, am I lying?
There you go. Yeah, you can sit where.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that some committee members, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. When speaking, be sure to speak directly into a microphone so that all comments are heard and the record of the meeting is accurate. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by noon the day of the meeting. The public also will have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the fifth floor conference room of the municipal office building. Public comment will be allowed during each agenda item, and comments should be limited to the item at hand and per the commission rules of procedure. Should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to the motives and personalities. I will now call the meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee for Monday, April 21st, 2025 to order, and would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez. Here. Lopez. Burns.
Here.
Stites.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Burrows.
Here. Thank you, committee. And I do want to acknowledge we have Ms. Mary Gonzalez from the BPU board with us on the committee this evening too. Welcome, Mary. Clerk, I'll ask if there are any revisions to the agenda this evening.
No revisions.
Wonderful. And we have no minutes to approve, so we'll move right on into our committee agenda this evening. Our first item in committee, we have 3 action items and 1 for information only. Resolution fiscal year 2026, 2027, Kansas Department of Corrections Juvenile Justice Based Program. And I will ask Mr. Phil Lockman to present on behalf of the department. Mr.
Good
Lockman?
evening. I'm Phil Lockman, Director of the Department of Community Corrections. This is the evidence-based funds grant through the Kansas Department of Corrections for Juvenile Services. This is the 10th year we've received some form of this grant. It'll be about $1.6 million. They divvy it up across the state based on different socioeconomic data points, and that's what we receive. They combine 2 different parts of grants into this one grant. And the first one is the reinvestment grant. And we use that to pay for a day reporting specialist. And that's where we've got kids reporting in the evenings and during the day when they're suspended from school, when they need extra work going on, and we provide services to them and keep an eye on them. We also have family engagement specialists that works with parents and the whole family when the child first enters the system, so that we can get them going in the system faster and get them up to date and get involved in activities and treatment and other things so that we can expedite their process through the criminal justice system. We also have a cognitive facilitator, which provides cognitive education, which is one of the #1 evidence-based services for offenders, in which we work with kids and their families to try to change their viewpoints and the way they think, and hopefully mitigate what happens to them in the future and reduce their chances of recidivism in the system. Also, a restorative justice specialist, which provides parenting education, working with families. And those aren't always just kids in our system. It's parents that are having problems with their kids, and that we work with them so that they can get a better handle on working with the kid for their own sanity, but also so that they're aware of resources in the community, and we can get those to them. The second part of the grant is called the Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board Grant. This is, we do it through an RFP process. And this year, we've continued the funding. We're having 5 programs that we're funding. District Court has a One Circle girls group, Low Riding to Success Bike Club, Connections to Success, which is evidence-based curriculum with job readiness skills for kids. Full Throttle, which is a new program, which is an example. The POW program that the police department, they don't accept our kids that are in the system when they're working with them. And so what this is hopefully to do is to provide us an avenue that we can get kids that are in the system involved in physical activity, boxing, other things that help develop character, as well as keep them busy and keep them motivated. And then the JEGNA Club, which works with audio, visual, and multimedia with kids, trying to get them interested in that field and expertise. There is no match for this grant, for these grants, and it's about $1.6 million over 2 years.
Does any member of the committee have any questions, comments? These are one-time, this is one-time money, and these employees are only to be with us 2 years?
Well, these employees are already with us. We've received this grant for about 10 years. Where this money comes from, 12 years ago, I was responsible for about 450 kids in group homes. We eliminated those group homes and the use of them, and that freed up about $20 million a year at the state level. That money went into a pot of money, and that's what this money is used for now. Since we don't have kids, the group homes were an incredible failure and a waste of money. And this way gets the money back to the community so that we can use it.
Kane, move for approval.
Second. You have a motion and a second. Before I move on, I do need to ask if the Madam Clerk, if there were anyone online or the public wishes to make a comment?
No hands are raised.
Thank you. Is there anyone appearing in person who would like to address this item? Let the record show no one stepped forward. And I'll ask the clerk if there was any comments submitted by the public.
No comments were received.
Thank you. Committee, we do have a motion and a second for approval. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Lockman.
Thank you.
Committee, the next item on our agenda is approval of a resolution in support of the Unified Government Solid Waste Management Annual Plan Update in accordance with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment Regulation. And I see we do have Ms. Diana Miles here from our Public Works Department to make the presentation along with Mr. Shaw. So please, Ms. Miles.
Good evening, I'm Diana Miles, Solid Waste Manager. So every year, the state does require us to provide an update on the management plan. This year, we didn't have any changes to the plan or any adjustments. So I will just give an overview of some of the data that we collected from last year. In the first page, it's the residential collection data. You can see that in 2024, the trash and recycling did decrease. I did reach out to Edwardsville to confirm that their information was accurate, and they did confirm that it is. If you can see on 2023, it was over 900 tons, and in 2024, it was a little over 200, not even 250. The recycling in yard waste center, you can see that the glass and yard waste tonnage did decrease. The yard waste, I would like to point out that instead of sending that to the landfill, we turned that into mulch for the residents in the community. HHW events, we still have 7 a year. And the tonnage did decrease on those events. Dumpster days, we had a big turnout last year compared to other years. We had over 600 residents that did visit us, and we collected over 90 tons of bulky items and trash. Some of the new initiatives that we did work on is at the recycling center. We did get Wi-Fi. We didn't have that before, made a few upgrades. The other thing is that our team worked with B&L to kind of look at their recycling processes for the facilities. And then for the residential trash services, we did work with Waste Management to begin the CARTS program in 2025. So we came up with a timeline and also worked on a communications plan. Household hazardous waste, we continue to have that throughout the year, 7 events. And then the education and outreach, we participated in the NRC Civic Connect, some town hall meetings, neighborhood meetings, and we have also worked with some of the schools and going out to talk about recycling. Other initiatives that we also did was collaborate with the street division to provide mulch to the community. We also worked on the transition for customer service back to waste management to begin this year. And then the last several pages is just an attachment, the appendix from the management plan, and just highlights the recommendations and some key action items that we plan to take, and we have hit some of those. And then just tells you the time frame from near term to long term. If you have any questions, that's our presentation.
If there's no questions from the committee, I'll ask if clerk, if there anybody online or from the public wishes to make a comment.
No hands are raised.
Is there anyone present in the room who would like to make comment in reference to this item? Let the record show no one stepped forward. Is there anybody submit written testimony?
No comments were received.
Thank you. Committee, I'd now entertain a motion.
Kane, move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you, Commissioner Kane. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations and thank you for the report. Committee, the next item, item 3 on our agenda is approval of a resolution in support of the Unified Government Solid Waste Management Annual Plan Update in accordance with Kansas Department of Health and Environment Regulation. Oops, sorry, wrong one. My apologies, committee. Yeah, item 3. The next item on our agenda is a resolution authorizing the unified government to apply for a grant from the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program, requiring no matching funds, which is always a pleasant thing to hear. So I believe that I will recognize Mr. Shaw, Public Works, to make comments and remarks.
And I will turn it over to Sarah Schaefer and Sarah White.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to present and ultimately request authorization to apply for free money that's for the unified government. So tonight, we're going to be talking about a couple of different stormwater programming grant application requests. It is to support the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program. So unified government has specific areas that we know that we have localized flooding or instances where we have some higher risk. Those areas are put into our hazard mitigation plan, which makes us eligible for various funding, this one being one of them. So the FEMA HMA program is designed to provide grant solutions to studies as well as potentially construction in the future. What we're asking for is to continue to study the area to understand what our capital needs are and our future funding requirements. This particular hazard mitigation assistance program does require a minimum of 25% local match, but as I said, we are asking for a no match from the unified government, so it's 2 parts. So once we get through both parts, I'll show you how that's going to work. It's non-federal funds that are the match. So our next steps for this particular free money component of the grant is to submit a letter of interest, followed up by an application for that. We're going to go through and explain the 2 projects that we're going to be requesting funds for that total $1.2 million. And then I'll go ahead and I'll talk to you about that matching funds and how that is not from the unified government. So in order to get to the programming components of this, talking about the projects, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah White.
Good evening. My name is Sarah White. I'm in Public Works Engineering. And so Public Works recommends 2 projects to be submitted as part of FEMA's HMA program. The first one, it would be the Brenner Heights Flood Mitigation Study. As you can see here, this is an area bound by between 64th Street and 67th Street along Leavenworth Road. And this will be a continuation of a previous project that was put in with the Leavenworth Road project that was not able to fully address all the stormwater needs. This study would look into what options we have here and potentially go into design of these fixes. This request is, we are requesting $200,000 for the budget of this. The next project we plan to submit is the Turkey Creek Collaborative Group. As a lot of you know, Turkey Creek is an urban stream that runs through our county and exits into the Kansas River. We have just completed a $151 million flood protection project along Turkey Creek. The upstream portion of that is at the Boulevard Drive-In, which is approximately where Merriam Lane, Southwest Boulevard kind of converge there. However, Turkey Creek does continue upstream of that location, and that is a natural section which is bordered by I-35 and the railroad and quite a few industries along there. And we would like to study this reach to see what best practices can be put in place in order to mitigate any concerns on that reach, as well as protecting the federal investment into the flood control project that was put in, and minimizing our need for any kind of major operations and maintenance that might come about because of what's happening on the middle reach. This budget request is for $1 million.
So Sarah Schaefer, Public Works. So as we mentioned, what about those matching funds? So we're requesting permission to go to the Build Kansas Fund and apply for the matching funds to come from the state's funding source that is meant to support municipalities in their matching fund needs. So the Build Kansas Fund is the way that we would provide that non-federal local match. So the Public Works Department would submit in parallel the applications to the Build Kansas Fund for the FEMA HMA match requirement. Those match requirements are Brenner Heights flood mitigation request is $50,000 and the Turkey Creek Collaborative request is $250,000. So ultimately, our next steps.
Sarah White with Public Works Engineering. Next steps, we're asking for a recommendation from standing committee to allow staff to submit both the letter of intent for both projects as well as the grant applications for FEMA HMA program and the Build Kansas Fund. We're asking for this item to be placed on the full commission agenda for formal action of recommendation. And then upon award notification, we will return to commission to request to accept the funds. And with that, we'll ask if there's any questions.
Committee, any questions? Commissioner Burns?
Yes. Are some of these applications the ones that Michael Tobin submits to the state?
Do not know. I will find out for you, though. These ones that we're doing here, I don't think so in the past have been, but I can find out what those are. I just don't off the top of my head.
No problem. Thank you.
Remind me how much money?
$1.2 million of free money is what we're requesting permission to go after.
Kane, move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before I accept those motions and accept it or recognize them, I do want to ask ask Madam Clerk, if there's anyone online, public, who wishes to make a comment.
No hands are raised.
Is there any member of the letters from the public submitted?
No comments were received.
Is there anybody in person who would care to address this item? Let the record show no one stepped forward. Committee, we do have a motion and a second for approval. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Can I confirm who made the second, please?
The second was Mr. Burns.
Thank you. Roll call. Gonzalez, Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. In committee, our last item is for information only. And this is a presentation for Safe Streets for All Vision Zero Action Plan. This is which builds upon the address and addresses the first action item of the UG adopted GoDOT countywide strategic mobility plan. The department is requesting this item move to the next available Board of Commission meeting for presentation before the full board. I will recognize Troy Shaw from Public Works to again do introductions and start us off.
Yeah, Troy Shaw, Public Works. This is a combination effort between Public Works and Planning. Sarah Schaefer's gonna start the report and get you what you need.
Yes, thank you. Sarah Schaefer, Public Works. I'm here to introduce our consultant, Kimley Horn, with their presentation for the SS4A update. We have an update for you today on really the purpose and the intent of the SS4A grant, how the federal highway funds are being utilized, and kind of what's coming up in the future. Our recommendation to go in front of the full committee or full commission is on the agenda item. However, if it is so moved by the committee to have us come back for another presentation, we can keep coming back to just the committee. And then we know we've got some specific items that would have to go to the full commission anyway. So we'll leave that up to you guys. But here we go. I'll go ahead and introduce Anthony Gallo with Kimley Horn to start our presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, my name is Anthony Gallo with Kimley Horn. I'm the consultant project manager working with UG Public Works and Planning on this Vision Zero Action Plan. Sarah, you mind if I grab that? The clicker. Thank you. So I'll walk through quickly what is Vision Zero and the SS4A acronym that Sarah mentioned. I'll talk a little bit about the public and stakeholder engagement efforts that we've been going through thus far, and then we've got several next steps we've gotten underway at the beginning of the year. So Vision Zero, some of you may have heard the term. I want to point your attention, I guess, first to the box here in the bottom left that in Wyandotte County, over the past 10 years for which we have available and complete crash data, we had 239 people killed, another almost 1,000 people seriously injured. So around 100 people a year seriously injured, around 24, 25 people a year killed in traffic crashes just in Wyandotte County. If we go beyond that, in the state of Kansas, we average around 400 fatalities a year and a few thousand serious injuries. At the national level, the ballpark number that gets thrown around a lot that you'll hear is 40,000 fatalities per year from traffic crashes. So this is a serious public health issue. I'll show you on the next slide. It's an issue that's become more pressing over the past, say, 10 to 15 years, particularly here in the US. Vision Zero is a movement to eliminate traffic deaths, to dramatically reduce the amount of fatalities and serious injuries that we see on our streets. It's been implemented around the world. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of cities, counties, municipalities in the US adopting Vision Zero over the past few years. A few that have seen some pretty substantial results. Jersey City, New Jersey, probably being the most prominent example. And it really builds upon the 5 objectives that you see here on this wheel. So thinking about safe road users are folks who are using the transportation system, not just drivers, vehicles, speeds, roads, and post-crash care after a crash occurs. So we're thinking about strategies around all 5 of those objectives. So this is a graph of traffic deaths per capita for several countries that I like to show to kind of put things in perspective for the US. So we've had cars for a little over 100 years at this point. Since the advent of the automobile 100 years ago, more and more people got cars. We built more and more roads. But over the years, we made a lot of progress, at least on a fatalities per capita basis. Essentially, our roads got safer. Around the early 21st century, things started to change, at least here in the US, where we did not start to see, or we not continue to see the decrease that a lot of our peer countries around the world we're seeing when it comes to fatalities and traffic deaths. I think for me in particular, this graph, looking at like Canada and Australia, countries that have grown up around the same time as the US and developed in similar ways, to see that they have continued to track downwards on this fatality trend while the US has flatlined or even arguably gotten worse over the past 10, 15 years. And Wyandotte County aligns very much with the US trend. Over the past 10 years, we averaged about 14 fatalities per capita, so basically right in line with the US trend. So that's the basis for why Vision Zero, why this is so important. And at the federal level, the US DOT introduced this Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program as part of the infrastructure bill a few years ago, the bipartisan infrastructure law. This grant program is aimed at making transportation safety a priority and having investments, particularly around safer streets. So like several US DOT grant programs, there are grants for planning and there are grants for implementation or construction. In order to be eligible for the implementation grants, you need to first complete a planning grant and have an adopted plan. So you all were just talking about 1.2 million in free money. Well, the UG received a $960,000 grant from the US DOT. KDOT provided the local match, the Build Kansas Fund, to the tune of $240,000. So it's a $1.2 million award. Our plan is going to be looking at, first and foremost, identifying the most critical safety issues, trends, and locations around the county, then developing a suite of programs and projects to combat those issues, and make the county and its partner cities of Bonner Springs, Edwardsville, and Lake Quivira eligible for implementation project funding. So the plan deliverables that we're looking at, three main buckets. First, we have our toolbox of system-wide countermeasures. This is going to be a series of strategies that are low cost, quick build. For example, like what are the top 50 intersections that need a improved crossing? What are the top locations for revisiting signage? Along with that, we're going to be doing a lot of work looking at behind the scenes policies and programs. Things that could be done like refining our traffic calming program or street tree policy, various behind the scenes looking at things like the zoning ordinance and that update and how transportation safety can get weaved into that. Probably the big ticket item that will come out of this plan are these targeted safety projects. So this is essentially like rebuild this intersection, redesign this intersection to make it safer, things like that. So this will be specifically for locations that have significant crash history and safety risk. The plan would provide concept level design and cost estimates and set the UG and partner cities up for additional funding. And there's also going to be a series of technical resources that are provided out of this plan. Safety data dashboard tools for UG and partner city staff to use to better understand and plan for transportation safety. Better information sharing with the public via public-facing dashboards, guidance to the capital and maintenance program as it relates to safety, looking at innovative funding strategies, particularly for external funding sources, and providing some methodology for tracking progress, sharing information on the public or sharing information to the public on progress and future prioritization of projects. So the plan began basically around the turn of the new year. We've been going through a lot of data collection and analysis to this date. We launched a project website a couple months ago, have an online comment map, and setting the stage with several public engagement, countywide engagement items, and some targeted one-on-one stakeholder engagement. Moving into more of that this summer. We'll also then get moving into developing out those concepts for those identified highest priority hotspot locations. We'll be working through with both Public Works and Planning on those policy and process updates behind the scenes this fall. And then we're looking to share a draft plan with UG staff and ultimately with the board later the end of the year or very early 2026 timeline for adoption. But really the plan won't stop there. This is envisioned to be a living document that gets updated year in, year out with hopefully the tools that we're able to provide to better track how we're progressing as transportation safety and hopefully see that graph start to show a decline here in Wyandotte County. So a few public and stakeholder engagement items that we want to highlight. So our plan is, again, being led through a partnership between UG Public Works and Planning and Urban Design, as both Sarah and Troy mentioned. We also are working with partner cities at Bonner Springs and Edwardsville, and actually just recently brought Lake Quivira on board as well. We have a steering committee that's made up of representation from several departments within the UG, the ones listed you see here, as well as several partners from around the county, key community groups, entities that relate to transportation safety in some capacity. That steering committee had its first meeting the end of February, and then we're meeting again next week to actually go on a safety tour to some identified hotspot locations around the county. We've had a lot of social media blasts and other virtual information being pushed to date. Some of you may have seen there was a feature in the news last month around the action plan after one of the e-blasts. And I know that there have been a couple high-profile pedestrian fatalities the past few weeks. Other planned engagement activities. So I mentioned the project website, interactive comment map. I'll show that on the next slide. We also did have some questions about transportation safety in the UG community survey that got mailed out, I believe last month, social media blast that I mentioned. We've got some fact sheets and one-pagers. We've been doing some literature drops around the county. We're going to be looking to have a what we're calling a Vision Zero Summit, or essentially like a transportation safety summit later on this year. Excuse me. At that event, we're going to have what's coined a better block demonstration activity. Basically, we're going to close a street or an intersection temporarily and look to have a reimagining using temporary materials of what that could look like as a safer, more complete street. We're also going to be looking to provide a lot of Vision Zero educational materials that can be used beyond this plan for educating both community groups and the general public. I mentioned we have a steering committee made up of staff from different groups within the UG and community groups. Been having starting some one-on-one stakeholder conversations that'll be going on over the course of this summer. We're looking to have some targeted community group presentations. We already have a few lined up, and we've been having some targeted one-on-one conversations with our partner cities as well. As I mentioned, we're going to be taking our steering committee on a safety tour next Friday to look at crash hotspots around the county, get out and walk around at a few locations and talk about some of the issues. We are interested in having a safety tour later on in the project process that includes elected officials as well.
Can we get a list of the hot spots?
Yes, we are working through that right now and vetting that with our project management team. I think Sarah mentioned coming back at a later date where we will have kind of a
Thanks.
list of maps to share there. Here's our website. The short URL is wycokck.org/Vision Zero. Got a QR code on here. Probably the most notable item on here right now is our comment map where folks can go on, and this was the day it was launched. There's not much on here. Now we've got several hundred comments, but folks can go on and post about any sort of transportation safety issue, biking, walking concerns, where they've been in a crash or near crash, driving concerns. We've been hearing a lot so far about pedestrian safety. I feel unsafe walking here, waiting in my bus, things like that, as well as various driver safety issues. You know, I don't feel safe driving this intersection, unclear signage, roadway maintenance issues like that. So we'll, you know, as we share more data, I think the next time we meet with you all, we want to share some findings, both from the hard crash data, the quantitative data, as well as what we've been hearing from public input. So next steps, as I mentioned, we're working through a lot of our data analysis right now. We've got a pretty good grasp on major trends countywide, whether that's trends over time or just the major topic areas that we're seeing, you know, whether it's impairment issues, speeding, things like that. We've got an interactive dashboard that we've been using internally for doing a lot of that diagnosis that we've been sharing with our steering committee. As we mentioned, we can share a list of critical safety hotspots, you know, statistically worse streets and intersections. We've been launching and moving forward with a lot of our engagement, both online and in person, looking to have more engagement at some upcoming pop-up events as we're kind of moving into festival season here, as well as some one-on-one community group meetings. And we've been starting that deep dive on internal policies and processes, particularly within the UG. So having a lot of discussion around how our capital and maintenance program is currently put together and how transportation safety can better factor in there, and then looking at funding and financing strategies as well. I think that's it.
So
I was just going to add, we talked about the beginning, the recommendation to start with. I think our recommendation, given the commission schedule over the next couple months and knowing how we operate the standing committee, is that we would do the analysis that we've been talking about, get more data, come back to standing committee. We can come back as many times as you want to, but ultimately in the end of it for adoption, I think was at the end of this year, roughly, we had a draft that we would have to go to full commission. So at that point, for sure, we would come back to standing committee, take that for adoption through standing committee, and then get moved on to full commission. So, but we would be glad to come back sometime in the summer once we get some data too, to give you an update on that as well.
yeah, our current, Sarah Schaefer, Public Works, our current timeline is to come back in June with the data that we've collected, present that. We do know that the schedule that you guys keep between now and August is pretty full. So when we first made our information only request for the agenda item, it was before the summer schedule was kind of out and about. So that's why our recommendation was to take it to the full commission, but we're looking to you guys for that recommendation if we want to come back to the standing committee with more information. And then we always know that this report has to go to full commission no matter what. And so we've got time for that too.
Just for clarification, I believe we would like to see those intersections that you're proposing and the data, so that we can ask questions and hopefully be an advocate should this go to full commission to assist in the communication of why it's significant and important. So if you've got it lined up for sometime in June, did you say?
Correct. We'll be preparing our agenda item for the June standing committee. So our plan is to come back every other month.
Wonderful. That's appreciated. And as I stated, committee, this was for information only. Is any other member of the committee have any questions? It's information only. Yeah.
Yeah, motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Byrne.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Was there anybody in the audience who would care to make comment to this issue? Let the record show no one stepped forward. Is anyone online or submitted in writing?
No hands are raised, no comments were received.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, we have a motion for adjournment and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Lopez, Burns.
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane, Burrows,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you, committee. That concludes our meeting this evening. I sincerely appreciate everybody's attentiveness. Thank you. We are adjourned.